Hey everyone, Kane here, and in this video we're gonna talk about the formation in terms of PvP, what kind of changes you can do to the Lich Formation, and all that kind of stuff. So, there are a lot of varieties in terms of the PvP formation that you can have, you can build, and whatever. So, personally, this is currently what I'm using in terms of my formation, and we're gonna touch on that in terms of showing off what equipment I'm using, what artifacts I'm using, all that kind of stuff. So currently the Lich Formation is pretty strong because of the stalkers in the stall side, as well as having a pretty decent burst side, and skeletons kind of running in front of the dragon or so, since there are too many units. So if you play your cards properly, your abilities properly, your dragon may just survive almost the entire fight. It really just depends. Now, as you can see, there are 9 squares in here which are pretty empty. The thing about that is I don't really have summoners. Usually people do put summoners in here. Majority of the time I had a worm in here, but I kind of injured it. I kind of injured a couple of them while sieging, so I don't really have anything there. So in instead of a worm or a summoners, we're just gonna leave this one mad lad over here just for the sake of covering most of the squares. So starting with the stall side. So as you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 stalkers being buffed by Virion, Astrarian, Fati. Also, I do believe I have a couple of hero masteries which would either buff the stalkers or debuff anything hitting the stalkers, as well as healing, all that kind of stuff. My variant happens to be like, or do about 500 to like 1 billion points of healing every fight. Now do keep in mind that I am just like 12 million core. These stalkers are not tier 19. They're not like incredibly insane and whatever. And if I would have a gladiator instead of Varian doing all that healing, likely there would be more healing involved. However, the thing about that is most of the gladiators don't really have above tier 12 research. They're level 65, so they happen to die almost instantly. So the only gladiator slash paladin that doesn't die instantly is Varian, and I've made a video about him as well. So he happens to survive for quite a decent amount of time, passing on the healing, doing all the work in terms of making the stall side tanky. Now, Bellrock, I also have some buffs in terms of hero mastery on Bellrock. I think I have even the I forgot one of the gladiator artifacts which grant him HP percent healing per second. Not Hell's Guard, maybe something, not War Maker's Main, because I don't have that artifact yet, but I do believe another one, something like shield based. And also I do have the Band of Bishop on both of them, also passing on the healing towards the stalkers. Now if you would have a War Maker's Main, right, and you would put them somewhere on the stalker side, like even Balrog, right, so basically you would have variant healing incredible amounts with Astrarian Fati and what I have set up, and you would have Warmaker's Main also providing so much healing because my burst side actually explodes things on that side, granting the Warmaker's Main and stuff like that healing and whatever, and all those like it would be so much healing that the stall side would not actually be falling or falling as quickly. And in the end, my burst side would eventually prevail and plow through the mid in terms of the battle. Now, there are a few nuances again where you can touch how many heroes you can place. I think I can place about 22, and that's already quite too much in terms of what I think so. So on my stall side, I have Virion, Belro, Gazul, I have Yip to just deny some archers because a lot of people have archers on their burst side. Avalon. Now, Avalon is one of the more important heroes in terms of what I would deem a stall side. Now, quite a lot of people would put this hero in terms of the burst side. If I would put him on the burst side, he would likely push the Rufio in terms of the front line. He gets hit a lot earlier, then I cannot jump. Rufio ends up dying, or the mages walk too fast, too forward, all that kind of stuff. And in the end, it becomes pretty rough and can even mess up my skill cast. So instead of that, I place the Avalon in terms of the stall side, and he buffs these two squads of stalkers, which end up running straight down here. Usually, it really depends whom I face and what they cast, and this one literally runs into like almost the backside of the enemy army. So depending on formation as well. Also, I have Avalon with 50 potential, so these ones also do some damage. Now, the other thing is I have Tempering Charm on this as well. So both of these running into the backline of the enemy, as well as this running in towards the dragon, or rather in front of the dragon, will have buffed up basic attacks doing a little bit more damage. So yeah, that is also a thing that you should consider if you're of course playing Lich and want to learn how to play Lich. In terms of the current meta information, in terms of the Fenris, I'm currently leveling him. He's level 60 or 61. Whenever I make him 65, I'm gonna add a buffing prism on him to keep for forever, I suppose. But for now, he's just being leveled and a little bit tested. Basric, I built him as a DPS or so, somewhere in the middle. Usually nobody has a lot of DPS in the middle unless it's Sylph. So sometimes he ends up doing decent, sometimes he does nothing. So I eventually might even remove the DPS prism and make it a buff one. I'm not sure yet, but I'm still like 50-50 on him. Kitano has Valkyrie's banner. Now, you have to take note how Kitano is placed. So he's buffing 1, 2, 3 Stalker squads with Valkyrie's banner, making them kind of tanky for about 25 to 30 seconds or so. And I think I have some hero masteries as well, which would then in terms either buff, debuff, or heal the stalkers. I kind of forgot, I'm not entirely sure, but I think I still have some buffs in terms of the placement. Now, as I said, you should swap this one with something else in terms of like summoners, Verm, or whatever. Verm is for the area stun, which sometimes can screw up the enemy's heroes or skill cast or whatever, which in the end can usually even win you the battle from just the beginning. And yes, that can happen. Now, moving towards the burst side. So in terms of my burst side, I have I'm gonna just move the dragon. I have Solaris in the front line. Excuse me. Usually just runs forward, soaks a bit of damage, and until he soaks that damage, I am able to cast my Avril as my second ability, and it's usually Blizzard, so she ends up damaging majority of the backline, heroes, archers, whatever is in the backline. Usually I try to tag both the backline and the front line, since there are nuances where she can do both of these, depending which race I'm actually damaging or playing against. And then I would turn into the Rufio just before the Leo Sprite proc, and then it kind of ends up being a pretty huge burst. Now, there are nuances to this formation. Um, Depending who I face, Solaris can actually be hit to 0 rather quite quickly, since he's level 65. My Avril can get focused down, and I cannot cast her ability. My Rufio can enter invincibility and also not cast as well. There are nuances where that has happened. with I think like 20% chance, 15% chance. So there are nuances again where this formation can fail and likely not win, like question marks somewhere there. But my Valerie is pretty strong. My Tisafin is also pretty strong, and also the Ophidia. So even if Rufio jumps on Avril, Valerie, and even the dragon, I have Tisafin and Ophidia, which are severely overbuffed to the point that they can just solo the Rufio. Even some of them level 70 with like 50, 60 million HP in some auto attacks. So that can happen. Now, in terms of buffs, I have Sizer without a Prism, Nora with Draconic Storm, Valerie with Arcanist Fury tier 10. I have Arion with, I think, Devastating Strike level 8, almost level 9, and Mystic Scepter 5 star, and also like a debuffer slash buffer type build, which in some cases he ends up doing damage and a lot of it as well by even buffing the damage from my mages. So basically, he's just buffing the other mages to do damage while also being able to sometimes out damage them himself. Now, in terms of Raxius, I haven't really tested it yet. He's like a backup hero if my other heroes get stunned. So I can just stun the enemy's heroes as well, all that kind of stuff. Then I have Tisafin, which has Devastating Strike tier 9. I don't yet have a Drake set on her. Her artifact, that Dragon Rope thing, is 3 star. And then I have Ophidia, which has a tier 8 or tier 9 prism. Spirit Fracture, which depending where the enemy Rufio is placed, usually I place a snake around this like group somewhere here, because Rufios end up jumping towards my heroes on my burst side, and then that one snake ends up debuffing Rufio so much that he doesn't happen to kill my heroes. So do keep in mind that something like this can actually be also game changing. And then I have my Alana also on my burst side with the Sacred Wings. Usually she doesn't die because of her placement, and she's also providing Sacred Wings for the DPSs and also Floras. So the thing about that is Floras is not a DPS, so she doesn't really need Sacred Wings, I suppose. But the other four heroes around her are actually the DPS. So essentially, it buffs their damage and kind of protects them from immunity, or rather from CC with the immunity, increases their accuracy, their damage, all that kind of stuff. And that is pretty much how my formation works. The stall side has a lot of healing, debuffing abilities, hero masteries, artifacts, just to make that stall side survive for as long as possible, while my burst side has majority of the offensive stuff and some defensive one mages so they don't get one-shotted, and just plow through everything as quick as possible with the few heroes that I have in terms of a huge area burst damage, since mages are literally area burst. Now, that is pretty much it, I suppose, for the formation in terms of things, and now moving towards heroes. So this is how my Rufio looks like with tier 9 Prism. He has almost 6 million attack. Now this is my Avril. I go with a full Drake set, 5-star Manalock Codex, and also a tier 9 Prism. About 6 million attack. This is my Valerie layout. I use the dragon set so she gets some invulnerability whenever she's down low. I have 20% fire damage, 25% melee, and then upgrading Lotus Fire to level 10 with this one. 5-star Arcane Rod and tier 10 Arcanist's Fury. Now, Avalon, this is, as I said, Tempering Charm, buffing surrounding troops with the buff, which increases like bonus damage, attack speed, all that kind of stuff. The current layout is basically just for events. At the moment, I didn't swap to more stats. In terms of abilities, Warhorn Exalted, which, as I said, 40% bonus damage the first few seconds. Now, majority of the other heroes don't really matter that much in terms of variant. Like, this is pretty basic. The only two abilities playing as Lich, you need Light Safeguard and Lion's Heart Blade. Now, in terms of HP, he's 25.5 million, which is quite a lot at my stage. Gazu level 60, basically just basic stuff on him with Solantris, 3 stars, some buffing, some, I suppose, a little bit tankiness, Fearsome Aura, all the other stuff, tier 9 or tier 10. Now, this is my Ophidia, which I said I have upgraded. So I have a 3-star Codex on her, and I have a tier 8 Spirit Fracture, which will usually debuff a Rufio going for my dragon or my heroes, which is pretty good. And that is what people should focus on. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this is like the best layout for the abilities, but I go with something like this. So whether or not this is good, I am not sure, but again, I just go for it myself. In terms of Nora, so currently I have this sort of a setup. I kind of removed the Rage 4 mastery off of her and put that on Valerie. So I kind of want to put more range on my Nora, so she's able to sometimes land the cannonball on the backline instead of the front line. This might remove some damage from the front line, but there are chances where her cannonballs or fireworks in this case would actually land on the backline, which would then be able to do a lot of damage. So again, sacrificing some damage instead of having like a pistol, which would grant more damage on front line, to then have a chance to do more damage towards the backline. So Sunflare 4-star, and of course tier 8 Draconic Storm. Now in terms of skills, tier 9 or rather level 9 Fusillade, level 9 Strike Commander, tier 10 or level 10 Destruction Rage. Now in terms of other heroes, Talk is, I suppose, one of the more important ones. Clairvoyance tier 8, Feng Shui Master level 10, Prophetic Trance level 10. The more skills you cast, the more bonuses you get, which in terms of a full battle, like, these buffs are pretty friggin' huge because they buff even your heroes, as I do remember. And I don't want to say tested, but I want to say I've actually seen like this buff proccing on heroes as well as armies. So likely that is pretty good, since it can stack with like I suppose heroes like Bad Blitz, Ophidia Snake, all that kind of stuff, like Avril skills, Rufio skills. They will stack this up rather quite quickly early on, and the mages just explode. The same for Zen State tier 5, higher chance to proc better stuff, and also it providing a lot more on the field as well. Now this is my Bellrock build. Yeah, Helgard. So yeah, basically I have the Band of Bishop. I have this, which is kind of healing him somewhat. Um, it somewhat works on him, I'm not sure, but kind of just, I don't know, full tank with some healing towards the front line, and it kind of makes him survive a little bit decent, I suppose. Sometimes he ends up healing like 500 million, I think, and yeah, sometimes ends up surviving the entire fight. Now, in terms of Fenris, I haven't really done stuff for him. I think this is, yeah, just full hero attack at the moment. Nothing too important in terms of this particular hero. Basric, as I said, built as a DPS, tier 8 Whirling Blade, 5.4 million attack, the usual stuff that most Basric should have, nothing too extraordinary. Now, Flora's, she is somewhat a buffer for me. She has a tier 4 Nectar of Life, and I think I have turned the tide tier rate as well. She doesn't happen to die very early on. She has healing, buffing, etc. for the Rufio, a couple of revivals as well. Now, Saizo is not built to be incredible DPS since I lack a lot of attack, I lack a lot of research for him. So I'm not even investing in prisms, all that kind of stuff. Just put probably the best equipment that I can, tier 2-star Iga Shuriken, but whenever I level a crossbow or that free to play artifact to 5-star, gonna put it on size, I'm gonna put a prism on him, and then likely he's gonna perform a bit better because I'm not sure if I can spare my resources on Iga Shuriken when I need a War Maker's main 5-star or 4-star as soon as I would be able. Now, this is the Solaris build. Not sure if this is like the best one in terms of tankiness or whatever. This is just what I have for the very beginning. I kind of need him to not uh like die in the first 10 seconds. Usually happens, but sometimes in the first 2 seconds he takes 100% HP damage and then the focus goes to Avril. So sometimes it's pretty bad even with this particular trinket, but stuff happens, and what can you do? This artifact is 3-star though. Prism is Fearsome Aura. Stats are 35 million HP. Now, in terms of the abilities, this is probably not tankiness based, but I want him to sometimes do some damage as well. Likely I could get a little bit more tankiness with this, but I'm still messing a little bit with his build. So sometimes he ends up even scoring like top 3. Not often, but sometimes. Now, this is the Aryan build which I spoke about. So he has full Drake set, he has Mystic Scepter 5-star, and he also has tier 8 Devastating Strike. Now, the abilities, I have 10 level 10 blood depth, level 10 corruption, level 10 tainted blood, which blood curse lasts for an additional 7 seconds while it's active. 20% magic done, or rather while the blood curse is active, any magic done to the inflicted unit is increased by 20%. Now, do keep in mind that every 0.5 seconds, Arian's target has a chance to spread the blood curse 100%. So, likely he's able to spread rather quite quickly depending on how many targets he has infected, how close, all that kind of stuff, which essentially can boost quite a lot of damage. And the other two abilities are sort of working as like damage dealing types of stuff. I'm not really too much bothered or interested in investing into those. My main damage is Avril and Valerie, and this guy kind of makes them do quite a bit. Now, in terms of Kitano, like most other tanks, almost exactly the same thing, and like just Valkyrie's banner, which I mentioned, and of course abilities towards heal and buy time and survive. Now, Tisophin, this is, as I said, I only have one piece of Drake set. I still need a second one, and then she's gonna get a pretty huge and strong buff. She has almost 10 million attack for me. The skills, this is what I use. Again, I'm not entirely sure if this is incredibly insane, this is incredibly overpowered, but this is what I use, and majority of the time she's top 3 DPS. Majority of the time she can be like, she never leaves top 5, at least 99% of the time. So yeah, this build somewhat is working for me, I guess. That's the potential. And Palace is just a stat buffer for me. So basically, Hero Mastery, this is how I have set up. Arcane 2 is Tisafin, the one moment, active ability cooldowns on Rufio. Dead enemy units grant more magic damage for Ophidia, burning on Avril, and then the double skill cast on Valerie. The rage one. So the first one on Saizo, the range, as I said, on Valerie, so her fireballs can reach more targets, and then I have tier 8 on Rufio, and of course tier 10 on the Tisafin. Now, the other three are literally based on the point of you forming the formation. So, regardless of me showing you all of these, right, you're not gonna get anything from that. Like, you probably would change it and then end up messing up your formation. The only thing I can show in terms of this is what I'm using for my main burst side and DPS heroes, in terms of what like my core damage is. But these ones, they are really your account dependent, and you cannot really copy that because some heroes may be weaker, underperform, and not provide as much as they would be in terms of my own formation. So do keep that in mind. Aside from that, I do believe that is pretty much it, but we can also add the dragon into this equation again. So I made a video previously about the dragon, and a fire dragon actually helps you bypass the enemy side quicker than any other dragon. Or in my own case, of course, Onyx Dragon can also do a somewhat similar job, maybe sometimes quicker, maybe sometimes slower. So, what helps a Ruby Dragon is a blessed Aura Blast, blessed Magic Swell, as well as the blessed Incendiary Scales. Now, the Scales and the Aura Blast will always proc same time or almost same time, proccing two swells, removing magic resistance like quickly and as fast as able, and your mage is just exploding everything in terms of just so much removal in terms of resistances, so much removal or adding damage taken on the enemy army. Like you just basically make them naked to the point in front of your mages and all of that kind of stuff. So in particular formations, specific dragons can actually perform a lot better. Anyways, I think this video is like 20-25 minutes already, and I think it's prime time to cut the video in terms of here, and maybe in the future make some continuation in terms of the video, or a whole new video for that matter. Anyways, that's pretty much it. If you did enjoy the video, do hit that subscribe button. It would help me out a lot. Thanks for watching, take care, and stay safe out there.